Have you ever found yourself in a situation, a big decision looming, and you just desperately want God to send you a sign? Maybe you're praying, asking for a clear signal, a definitive answer, something undeniable that tells you exactly what to do. You're not alone. So many of us have been there, feeling that deep yearning for divine confirmation. But have you ever stopped to consider why we do that? What's the real reason you ask God for signs? On the surface, it seems pretty straightforward. We want guidance. We want to make the right choice, avoid mistakes, and make sure we're walking in God's will. And those are good desires. But if we dig a little deeper, beneath those understandable intentions, we often find something else at play, a profound and very human discomfort with uncertainty. Our brains are wired to seek predictability. It's not just a personality quirk, it's a deep-seated cognitive bias. Lorenzo Viglietti, writing about the brain's neurology, explains that this drive for certainty is rooted in our survival instincts. In our evolutionary past, uncertainty often meant danger. So our brains developed a protective strategy to favor what is known and predictable, even if it meant filling in the gaps with assumptions just to create a sense of control. This desire for certainty provides comfort. It makes us feel secure. When you're faced with a big decision, especially one with significant consequences, that discomfort with uncertainty can become intense. You might feel anxious, worried about making the wrong choice. This isn't a sign of weakness. It's a natural response from a mind trying its best to avoid a negative outcome. Psychologists have noted for years that being unsure can activate the brain's threat system, releasing stress hormones. So when you ask God for a sign, part of what you're really asking for is an escape from that discomfort. You're seeking to offload the burden of uncertainty, to bypass the anxiety that comes with not knowing. You want God to give you a clear, undeniable answer so you don't have to wrestle with the ambiguity. But this is where our faith has to intersect with our human wiring. The Bible consistently calls us to a different kind of certainty. It's a certainty rooted in trust in Him, not in external signals. Consider the words in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." This scripture doesn't say, "Trust in the Lord, and He will send you a flashing neon sign." It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart." That implies a surrender of our own understanding, our own need for perfect clarity, and our own desire to control the outcome. It asks us to lean into His character, even when the path ahead isn't perfectly illuminated. The challenge is that our minds work against this. The psychologist Daniel Kahneman, in his book, Thinking, Fast and Slow, describes how we often rely on what he calls system one-inch thinking. It's fast, intuitive, and automatic. This system uses mental shortcuts that can lead to predictable errors and biases. One of these is a tendency to overestimate how much we understand and underestimate the role of chance or ambiguity. We want a quick, clear signal, a system one answer, for what is often a system 2 inches problem, a problem that requires slower, more deliberate thought and trust. This fear of making a wrong choice can also lead to what's called decision paralysis. We become so afraid of stepping out without explicit, undeniable confirmation that we end up doing nothing at all, waiting indefinitely for a sign that may not come in the way we expect. So, what's the alternative? How do we navigate big decisions when we genuinely want to honor God, but we're also wrestling with our human need for certainty? The Bible gives us a clear instruction in the book of James, chapter 1, verses 5 through 8. "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do." Notice, it says to ask for wisdom, not for a sign. Wisdom is the ability to apply knowledge and understanding to make good judgments. It's not a magic bullet that removes all uncertainty, but it's a divine gift that equips us to make sound decisions even in ambiguous situations. And God promises to give it generously. The passage also emphasizes belief. This isn't about believing that God will send a sign. It's about believing in His character, His faithfulness, and His willingness to guide us through His Spirit and His Word. It's about trusting that He's already given us the tools we need to make good choices, even when we don't have a crystal clear vision of the future. This brings us to another psychological hurdle we have to be aware of: confirmation bias. This is our natural tendency to seek out, interpret, and remember information in a way that confirms what we already believe or desire. The British psychologist Peter Wason demonstrated this in experiments back in the 1960s. So if you're hoping God will tell you to take a certain job, you might unconsciously start seeing signs everywhere that point to that job while completely overlooking the red flags. You're not being dishonest. Your brain is just filtering reality to match your hopes. This is why a demanding pursuit of signs can be spiritually tricky. Jesus himself addressed this when the Pharisees came to test him. In Matthew chapter 12, verse 39, he tells them, "An evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah." His response was harsh because their motive wasn't a humble search for truth. It was a demand for proof from a place of unbelief. They had already seen his miracles and heard his teaching, but they wanted God to perform on their terms. Our motive matters. If we're asking for a sign because we're genuinely scared and need reassurance, like Gideon with his fleece, God in his mercy might provide it. But if we're demanding a sign because we refuse to trust what he's already revealed, we're on shaky ground. Ultimately, the real reason you ask God for signs often boils down to a desire for sight over faith. You want to see the path clearly before you take a step. But our walk with God is fundamentally a walk of faith. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 7 reminds us, "For we live by faith, not by sight." This doesn't mean God never provides clear direction. Sometimes he does, in ways that are undeniable. But those instances are often the exception, not the rule. More often, he calls us to step out in faith, using the wisdom he's given us, trusting his character, and relying on his presence. So when you find yourself asking God for a sign, just pause for a moment. Ask yourself what's truly driving that request. Is it a genuine desire for wisdom, or is it that deep-seated human discomfort with uncertainty? Is it a longing for God's will, or is it a fear of making a mistake? Instead of just waiting for a sign, commit to seeking wisdom. Pray for discernment. Immerse yourself in his word. Seek godly counsel from trusted mentors who can help you see past your own biases. And then, step out in faith. Know that God is with you, guiding you, and that even if you stumble, his grace is sufficient. He doesn't need to send a sign for you to trust him. He just needs your trusting heart.